When you were talking about Elon, I was like, yeah, that guy. When you're talking about Zuck, I was like, yeah, that guy. Then you talk about Bezos, it's like, well, hold on a second.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Humbug.
And each week we take a look back in time, decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like to all the movies we have covered, we'll cover one. Choose one for yourself. Please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with a number of wipes each movie takes to get after respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share it with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, if you would like to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are you reviewing tonight?
Gene, tonight's a very special episode and a very special night. Right as I was about to hit record, I think I heard some hooves up on the roof. I heard some shuffling. I believe Santa is on his way tonight. And in the season of being thankful for what we have, Gene, I want you to know, I am thankful for you, my friend. I did the math. This is our 9th Christmas and holiday together. You're the longest male relationship I've had in a very long time, Gene, and I value you. And in this season of being thankful, number one on my list is thankful for Gene Lyons and the Shat podcast listeners.
Big D, every year I am reminded of just how you helped this podcast take off and how helpless I was as a podcaster before we started working together. I recently was going through the garage and some of the old t-shirt bins, and I found a Clean Sheets podcast t-shirt that Raj and I used to do, the Clean Sheets podcast, and just reminded that we were lucky to have 100 listeners, and now we're in the thousands and on episode 420 something now. I can't believe we made it this far, and I am grateful for you as well, my friend.
Yes, I'm very excited. Going back and thinking about the holiday movies and trying, now that Emma is 9 years old, she had her birthday, and thinking about the movies we've done that I can go sit back and watch with her. And it's so much fun. And this week, we're adding to our holiday spectacular. You can go back, folks. We have, I think, a total of like 12 Christmas and holiday movies. There are a lot of great podcasts back there. But tonight is a special one for another reason. Besides, it's the holiday. It's Christmas Eve. Everybody right now should... Hopefully you're in a cold place and you're cuddling up with your loved ones and having a nice cocktail, and the kids are running around and you're just thinking about tomorrow. One of our great listening pairs, we have a lot of listeners who them and their partners listen to the podcast. And one of the great sets is Helen and Andy. They commissioned way back Adventures in Babysitting. So for tonight's special event, it was a loved one commission from Helen to Andy. And Andy was kind enough to call in and tell us why this year's Shat Holiday Spectacular would be the Muppet Christmas Carol. So here's what Andy had to say.
Hi guys, this is Andy calling from London to talk about the Muppet Christmas Carol. My wife, the lovely Helen, commissioned this movie as an anniversary gift for me earlier this year. I previously commissioned Adventures in Babysitting for her some years ago, and both movies have been family favourites for many years. So where do I start with Muppet Christmas Carol? I've loved the Muppets since I was a kid, and the Muppet Show hit our TV screens in the 70s. I'd never really watched Sesame Street, but the Muppet Show was amazing. Great characters, great songs, amazing guests every week. It was like Saturday Night Live for kids, except adults loved it too. Also around the same time, I remember seeing the movie Scrooge with Alistair Sim. It was made in 1951, and there have been many adaptations. I've seen them all, but it remains the best, apart, that is, from the Muppet Christmas Carol. Dickens' original work is obviously a classic. I don't think there's any debate about that. and the Muppet adaptation is very faithful to the original material, and most of the dialogue is lifted directly from the book. Obviously, the Muppets, being the Muppets, insert a lot of jokes, but everything adds to the whole. Michael Caine gives a superb performance as Scrooge. He plays it absolutely straight, as he should, and I think it's one of his finest roles. He made some great movies in the 60s and 70s, like Get Carter, The Ipcress File, Alfie, Zulu, The Eagle Has Landed, and then he made a lot of crap in the 80s and 90s, Jaws the Revenge being a serious low point. His reputation as a good actor has only really been salvaged in the 21st century with the Batman movies. Anyway, the one truly great movie he made in the 90s is The Muppet Christmas Carol. While Michael Caine is great, the real stars of the movie are, of course, the Muppets. Kermit was born to play the downtrodden Bob Cratchit. Robin would be Tiny Tim. Miss Piggy would be Emily Cratchit. Gonzo and Rizzo the Rat put in a shift as the narrators and comic relief. They are perfect. Then there are the songs. Marley and Marley is genius. The scene where all the rats that work for Scrooge prepare for Christmas festivities gives us the song One More Sleep Till Christmas. The Scrooge sign has the line, "No cheeses for us Mises," which you'll often hear from my daughter Abby if she stood in front of the fridge looking for cheese and there is none. She likes her cheese. I'll finish with how this movie has become part of our Christmas Eve ritual. My kids are in their early 20s now, and since they were babies, we've lit the fire in the living room, put out the mince pie and sherry for Santa and a carrot for Rudolph, and settled down in our PJs to watch Muppet Christmas Carol. When Abby and James were little, they'd fall asleep and we'd carry them to bed. Now it's usually me falling asleep and they're all hitting the champagne. It's Helen's favourite day of the year, far better than the chaos and stress of Christmas Day. It wouldn't be the same without the Muppets. Thanks for watching The Muppet Christmas Carol. I'm confident you'll love it. It's a zero wiper if ever there was one. Thanks, guys. Merry Christmas.
You know, Big D, Andy touched on something very important and significant. The touchstones of Christmas, right? There is something about this season that just changes a person. It certainly changes me. And one of those things is I don't normally like rituals or doing the same thing over and over again, like watching the same movie. I know a lot of people, Hot Sauce Steve, they love to watch a movie 10, 20, 30 times. I'm not like that. I want to see new stuff. I want to explore new stuff. But something about Christmas, you want to do the same thing you did the year before and the year before that. And the idea of growing up and growing old and checking in with your family every year to see how people have grown, how things have changed while keeping some things the same, it's a beautiful thing.
We just came back from our week in New York. My folks are in upstate. They're outside of Woodstock. They're close to Hunter Mountain. And they live there. And we go up there the week before. And it has become a ritual that we've done now for probably like the last 24 years. My sister, her 2 adult sons come still. Her husband, we had my cousin from Austria come. And we always do the same things. On Friday, we used to go into Kingston to the mall, but the mall is now closed. So we go to Woodstock. There's nothing I want to buy there. But we still go to every single store. We do the rounds. We stop and get a coffee and a donut at Bread Alone. We walk around. And at the end, you're like, where did the weekend go? But it's been the same, the same thing we've done every year. And I'm scared for the day it doesn't happen. Each year, I think, are my nephew's going to say, hey, I'm too old, or I have a family now on my own. And then does it unravel? Does it stop? It is a really sad thing. And I think this time of the year is where everybody, regardless of age, starts to feel their mortality, because it's like when you have a kid. When you have a kid, it's a milestone. It's a stake in the ground. You can judge time. Christmas is, you think, holy shit, what was last Christmas or the year before? And you start to feel your age.
Well, The Muppet Christmas Carol is a 1992 Christmas musical starring Michael Caine and directed by Brian Henson in his feature film debut. Christmas Carol is the 4th theatrical film featuring the Muppets and the first Muppet film to be produced following the death of creator Jim Henson. Released in the United States on December 11th, 1992, The Muppet Christmas Carol was a modest box office success and received generally favorable reviews. It is the first Muppets film to be produced by Walt Disney Pictures, whose parent company would later acquire the rights to the Muppets characters and assets in 2004. So, Big D, we talked a little bit about Christmas, about Thanksgiving, the holidays and our memories of those. What about this movie specifically? What are your memories of The Muppet Christmas Carol?
So I was born in the early 70s. So the early 80s and into the 90s were what I consider my youth. And when you think back to that time frame, you're like, oh, there was so much stuff to watch. There were so many movies, so many classic things. But no, as a kid in that age growing up, everything that we watched was from like the 40s and the 60s. only later on in the 80s and the 90s, which I think it's the golden age of holiday entertainment. They hit on it and they just kept going back to it. And there were so many of the iconic movies that we've discussed. And I, as a kid, Muppet Christmas Carol, it didn't exist. It came out later on and I was not into it. But if you think, like me growing up, and if I think, what did I sit and watch with my mince pie and Abby and James, I would be sitting there watching like Frosty the Snowman or maybe Charlie Brown Christmas. A lot of the Rankin Bass stuff. To me, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, or even It's a Wonderful Life. That was the stuff that was on TV when I was a kid. None of this stuff later on.
I was born in 80, Big D, but same experience generally. And up until we reviewed Scrooge for Shat the Movies, the Muppet Christmas Carol was my definitive version of the Charles Dickens classic. Like, this is what A Christmas Carol was. It's true enough to the source material to honor the tale, like the original tale, but it's Muppety enough to make me laugh. So I was, I think, 12 when this movie came out. But again, I wasn't watching this. It took me until my 30s until I actually experienced this for the first time. And I loved it at first sight.
And going back, you can like isolate what the turning point was. It was a small 1983 film by the man who wrote Porky's. And he said, I'm going to do a story about growing up and my father and the neighbor's dogs. And it was my dream to get a BB gun. Christmas Story, 83. Then you've got right after that, you've got Christmas Vacation, Scrooged, Gremlin, the arguable Die Hard, but it's a Christmas movie, Home Alone, Nightmare Before Christmas, The Santa Claus, Jingle All the Way, Roger Roper's favorite, Ernest Saves Christmas. And then this in 92. It was a lot of great stuff, a lot of great TV. And now that we keep going back to it, it's probably the most iconic time for holiday entertainment.
Andy, Helen, and all the listeners out there, Merry Christmas to you. Let's hit the trailer.
Humbug. He was the greediest man alive.
It's Ebenezer Scrooge.
Until the night he met someone extraordinary.
Hello.
The Muppet Christmas Carol.
I'll drink to Mr. Scrooge, even though he is odious and stingy and badly dressed.
Humbug.
Oh, there goes Mr. Humbug. There goes Mr. Grin.
Do you think it's safe for us to be up here?
If they gave a prize for being mean, the winner would be him.
Yes, Mr. Cratchit.
If you please, Mr. Scrooge, the bookkeeping staff would like to have an extra shovel full of coal for the fire.
How would the bookkeepers like to be suddenly unemployed?
The heat wave. Oi! This is my island in the sun.
It's Charles Dickens' classic tale, as only the Muppets can tell it.
It's good to be heckling again.
It's good to be doing anything again.
Filled with holiday warmth.
Hey, like the lamb, not the rat, like the lamb, not the rat.
And Christmas spirit.
Jacob Marley?
Oh, that's scary stuff. Should we be worried about the kids in the audience?
No, it's all right. This is culture.
This is the movie to see, to share, to cherish with someone you love.
Thank you for making me a part of this.
Walt Disney Pictures presents from Jim Henson Productions, The Muppet Christmas Carol.
God bless us, everyone.
Whatever.
Charles Dickens and his friend Rizzo narrate the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, a grumpy moneylender of 19th century London who detests Christmas. On Christmas Eve, Scrooge rejects his nephew Fred's invitation to dinner, dismisses two gentlemen collecting money for charity, and tosses a wreath at a carol-singing bean bunny. His humble employee, Bob Cratchit, and the other bookkeepers request to not work on Christmas Day, since there will be no business for Scrooge on that day, to which Scrooge reluctantly agrees.
So, Gene, even though this is the fourth Muppet movie, we have reviewed only one before. We did the first Muppet movie, which was 79. And right off the bat, what stood out to me about this rewatch is the distance and the advances in puppeteering since the original in 79. We were blown away by the bicycle scene where Kermit is driving down the street and there's a steamroller. And we were like, how did they do that? but there was very few scenes that stood out where you couldn't figure out where is the puppeteer hiding. Here, there's more shots immediately. In Christmas Carol, they found creative ways to hide the puppeteers, and it made the Muppets feel more alive. They were in the environment. You'd see the full body, head to toe, Kermit singing, the trampoline rats jumping around. You've got that cute rabbit outside caroling. You know they're under the street, but it felt seamless, and it was an advance that made the Muppets seem more alive, and I was impressed right off the bat.
Big D, there's a point in every child's life when they learn about Santa Claus and the dirty secret there. I found out while preparing for this podcast that there's a thing called SMRD. That almost ruined Christmas for me. It's studio mandated rod deletion. Did you know about this?
No, I thought it was something like where Miss Piggy would be breathing into the mic. You'd be like, hear me. And you would sit there and you would like have really good headphones on. It's not that.
I wish. No. So the studios, once they had the technology to do it, they said, we want you to go in and remove all the rods that are actioning like the arms and the limbs of the Muppets. So if you have an original DVD of the Muppet Christmas Carol, you can see the little rods like moving Kermit's arms. But the studio decided that they would delete that. So if you're streaming it on Disney Plus, like I did, they gone. You can't see those rods.
No, that's cheating. Fuck, that's going to change the way I view, because I was impressed. Yeah. If it was done in post, that's bullshit. Then you could have been sloppy. There's no artistry in it.
What bothers me even more, though, is that they don't just use this for removing the rods. There's like editorial decisions, not in this movie specifically, but there are some Christmas classics where people might have like a cigar or a cigarette, and they remove that as well because that's not appropriate for Disney.
That's Disney. That's horse shit. If you're going to do that, you might as well stick to, because we just did Saving or Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And if you're going to do like a Dracula puppet show us the puppeteers, have them out in the leotards with just their face exposed. They should be there. You can't, this is cheating. This is so, right off the bat, I'm disliking this. And I'd rather have Kermit on his bicycle and known it was done correctly. They earned the wow factor. This is cheating.
Well, let's step back from the 90s and go into Victorian era. Watching this movie, hearing this tale, remembering A Christmas Carol, it took me back to a simpler time when a Scrooge was a Scrooge, and we all, as a whole, as a collective, agreed they suck.
Yeah.
Like, we hated greed. Like, that's bad. To hog all the money and not give Bob Cratchit money, that's bad. To let Tiny Tim die, that's bad. Like, my entire childhood was filled with stories in English and in Farsi, like A Christmas Carol, where we saw the rich as bad guys and the poor were our allies. They were the hardworking folks who couldn't catch a break. And I'm sitting here in 2024, like, what the hell happened? Gen Z, these kids, our hope, right? They were supposed to be better than their predecessors, but they're just as bad. And I would argue possibly worse. I recently got into a back and forth on Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky now. It was about minimum wage, okay? And one guy literally said the solution for poverty was for people to not be poor. And like, he's not wrong. Like, that would be a solution to poverty. But I brought up the fact that, well, hey, a great way for people to not be poor is to pay people more. And he clapped back with, not with my money. I don't want to pay more to make other people not poor.
No, so listen, people are going to be like, oh, you're talking politics. No, we're not talking politics.
No.
Don't. We are talking philosophy.
Yes.
And we're looking at movies going back, right? Let's take a classic. Let's take Trading Places. If Trading Places were put out today, Billy Ray Valentine would be the bad guy.
Yeah.
The Dukes would be the hero. They were self-made men. They were philanthropists. They were capitalists. And then Lewis, when he gets framed, that would be a typical thing, that Billy Ray and the lower class would do. And God forbid that Ophelia don't get a prostitute up and off the streets. It's a different time. It's just wild to think that the idea of taking care of people and caring for those, whether it's poor, disabled, anything, regardless of what you think, that helping people in need is a bad thing. I don't get it. And if you take what the story, it's an old story, it's been told many times. When Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol, he's trying to teach us compassion and greed is dangerous, and we are forgetting it. And the way the story critiques the wealth and the poor and the way that this is so relevant today, I started to think, besides Trading Places, what if we did a new version of this? Let's just stretch. We could pick any of them. We could pick Zuckerberg or Bezos or even Elon, but we're going to stick with Bezos, right? If Bezos was Scrooge and he was visited by the three spirits, and they exposed him to what the workers were going through. And, Jeff went into the warehouse and you could see the people in their little boxes. The robots are pulling around all the shelves and they're sweating, checking their time to make sure that their split rates on their boxing ratio and time, or the drivers pissing in water bottles because they can't stop. I don't know if Bezos would get the message and would feel bad, or he would think, fuck, there's another way I could optimize this. I need the spirits on my payroll so we can check at what the workers are doing and supervise them better. It's lost. I don't think that today, the way we put these tech billionaires up on the mountain, they are no longer responsible for what they do. It's everyone else's fault that we haven't climbed that mountain with them. And I don't think the message rings true today.
When you were talking about Elon, I was like, yeah, fuck that guy. When you're talking about Zuck, I was like, yeah, fuck that guy. Then you talk about Bezos, it's like, well, hold on a second. I'm kind of torn on the Bezos thing. Okay, hear me out. Yeah. Billionaires should not exist. 100% agree with that. If you are a billionaire, that means that you have taken money from other people. That's how you became rich. Like, that's just the facts, okay? I forgot what the exact stats on it were, but something like if you got like $5,000 put in your bank account every day, it would take something like 300 years. Somebody correct me on the math, host of shatpod.com, to make $1 billion, okay? It's it's more money than you think it is, everybody, believe me. But Bezos also sparked the revolution that made a lot of things really affordable for a lot of people. It made my favorite part of Amazon, right? Odd objects, very easy to find. Okay. I am often in search of a very specific thing that I have no idea how I would have found that. Like, I was alive in the 80s. Okay. I was alive in the 90s. If you'd have told me, like, go find this specific part or this specific widget or this specific whatever, it would take me forever to find that thing. Holiday traffic is greatly reduced. I've noticed that, like, around Christmas time, if you remember the traffic jams that used to exist, not so much anymore. And the weirdest thing, Big D, I don't know if you noticed this year. Now, I'm not a big Black Friday person. I've never really gone out to like the doorbusters and stuff. But on Thanksgiving, I used to take the newspaper. I am a newspaper reader and subscriber. And I would take it to family Thanksgiving. And after eating, everybody would pour over the papers and they would come up with a game plan of all the doorbusters they're going to hit on Black Friday. I opened the paper this year. It was like 3 pages. And they were all kind of meh.
Yeah, it's because, your buddy Bezos there has slowly been killing every other, brick and mortar store. And and I'm not saying this is a bad thing that, he didn't earn it, because he did. If you go back and look, he took a chance. He started in Miami. He was selling books online. People laughed at him. They have a business philosophy, which is a supervisor cannot say no to an idea unless they can write down a 2-page statement on why it won't work. And that led to AWS and one of their biggest moneymakers. But you can still make money and treat people well. That's my problem, is that Scrooge, regardless of his wealth, he's an asshole to his workers. He's an asshole to everyone in town. He gives 2 shits whether people are suffering. And you don't need to do that. That's my only thing. You can still be caring and be a billionaire, but we haven't found that perfect meeting place yet.
Well, that night, Scrooge encounters the shackled ghosts of his late business partners, Jacob and Robert Marley, in his bedchambers. They warn him to repent his wicked ways or be condemned to suffer in the afterlife as they do, and that 3 spirits will visit him during the night. At 1 o'clock, Scrooge is visited by the childlike ghost of Christmas past, who shows him visions of his childhood and early adult life. Along with Dickens and Rizzo, they visit Scrooge's lonely school days, then his time as an employee at Fozziwig's rubber chicken factory. At Fozziwig's Christmas party, Scrooge meets a young woman named Belle, with whom he falls in love, but loses as he chooses money over her. Seeing this, a tearful Scrooge tells the ghost to leave him. and has returned to his home. So thank Christmas, the Marley Brothers showed up to get this movie going, because that first few minutes is so slow and by the book until Statler and Waldorf show up. They're in chains and they keep going, whoa. And the movie was sort of milquetoast until those shitbags appeared and spiced things up. They are my favorite Muppets, bar none. And they also, in this movie, distilled my philosophy on Shat the movies when they dissed Fozziwig's Christmas speech. It was dumb. It was obvious. It was pointless. It was short. I loved it.
Yeah, I think it's because we were starved for our favorite characters. What we loved about the Muppet movie was you had all the bizarre people. You had Peppy the Pawn King. You had the Swedish Chef. You had Honeydew. You had Beaker. Beaker's in this. But it's all the weird people, like Robin the Frog or Floyd Pepper. Even Janice, the whole band is in this for a couple minutes. Camilla the Chicken, we needed her. There's a lot of New Zealand. Or who's the crazy dude with the fish? What was that?
I remember
what the
him.
fuck was that dude's name?
Yeah. Fuck.
We needed those. So when they come out, yes, you're like, oh, okay, I remember this is a Muppet movie, because it starts off, you're flying over the city, and it felt like a lot of the parodies. It felt like Scrooge's version of the Christmas Carol, where we have Mary Lou Retton going down the street doing flips. It felt like one of the parodies of it. But when they were young, yes, they were fun. The spirit was right. I liked it. But when they start doing the song, Gene, the Marley and Marley, it doesn't have the charm, the fun, the excitement of the other Muppet songs, let alone the purpose of these songs is also it's the holiday spirit. You missed an opportunity for there to be a holiday connection, and it just didn't hit. So it didn't do enough to make me think, wow, the movie's back.
And all apologies to Andy and Helen here. I'm not trying to be difficult. Far be it from me to pick an argument on Christmas. But Andy mentioned that the songs are really good. I got to say that one thing that struck me immediately about Muppet's Christmas Carol was how weak the songs were in comparison to Muppet Movie, which is weird because Paul William was involved with both soundtracks. Like, you've got continuity between the two films. But think back to the Muppet Movie, Rainbow Connection. Certified bop. That song kicks ass. But also we got Moving Right Along.
Yes.
And oddly, even Fozzie Bear's America the Beautiful, remember that with like the fucking B-roll? It's so good. Muppet Christmas Carol doesn't have a single song that I'd classify as an earworm. Nothing that got stuck in my head. Did you know that there was a song that was cut out completely?
No, it had to have been. There had to have been something missing. And again, I'm blaming all this on Disney. Yeah, I'm thinking this has to be fucking Disney for taking out the fun.
So check this out. So, Katzenberg, right?
Mm-hmm.
Disney exec. So they screened this movie in front of like an audience of children. And there's a song called When Love Is Gone. And it's sung by Belle, who was Scrooge's love interest when he was younger, right? And if that scene seemed really abbreviated, how like he's like, money. And then all of a sudden there's tears and you're like, what the fuck happened to Belle?
Yeah.
There was a song in there. There was supposed to be a song in there that she sang called When Love Is Gone. But Katzenberg's sitting there and he goes, and he notices that the kids in the audience are like getting really fidgety and they're not having it. And he's like, you got to cut this shit. Like, speed it up. Let's go.
Well, it makes sense. I'm going to get into it later. This was an odd choice. You couldn't pick some other material to adapt to the Muppets. There's a lot of darkness. Kids aren't into love. They're not into retrospective mistakes they made with the girl at Christmas who said, I love you and I want to have kids. And you said, well, my stocks are down and we're not ready. Kids aren't worried about their portfolio or about the money for a down payment on a house. And when
they
love
want the
is
fish
gone,
guy.
They want the fish guy throwing bombs. They want moving right along. They're driving in a convertible. They want that shit. They want the Rainbow Connection. They want Kermit on a lily pad. Kermit pedaling his bike. That's the shit they want. There's no reason. Because not only are they not capturing the magic, and Gene, whether or not, I think you hated her or whether or not our listeners hated Zoe Deschanel in what the hell was it? It was in Elf.
Elf, yeah.
When she sings in the shower, baby, it's cold outside. Regardless of what you think of her, it immediately, it catches on the time of season. It has nostalgia. In the end, it powers Santa's sleigh, Gene. You didn't have one song in here that could pull the spirits up or keep the kids from thinking about their 401k or about whether or not they were going to, hide some of their wealth, to shield it from taxes. Katzenberg was right to axe that fucking song.
Well, moving right along, Scrooge next meets the ghost of Christmas Present, who shows him the joys and wonder of Christmas Day. Scrooge and the ghost visit Fred's house, where Scrooge is made fun of for his stinginess and general ill will toward all. Scrooge and the spirit then visit Bob Cratchit's house, learning his family is content with the little they have. Scrooge also takes pity on Bob's ill son, Tiny Tim, whom the ghost comments will soon die if things continue the way they are.
Okay, so before I say any of this, I know people are already typing on their keyboard. Hey, Big D, but what about the fact that in the Muppet movie, they were trying to cook and eat Kermit? That it was someone who owned a restaurant that was serving frog legs that was trying to kill him.
It's funny.
I understand that, but that was somehow done for comedic effect.
Yeah,
that's funny. That's Kermit running for his life, the sign of Kermit up on the billboard. But this is a different kind of darkness. The tone is very weird, and it's walking this fine line between Muppet humor, darker topics, and then the adult content, Gene. When love goes astray and you're losing retrospective reviewing of like your teachers and or reevaluating your life decisions. It doesn't make any sense. And the haunting moments of Dickens' story was very adult. You got the Ghost of Christmas Past. This looked like something out of the Dark Crystal or Labyrinth. This was neither human nor Muppet. This was like a haunting apparition that could have been some kind of nightmare. It was like a doll face that was whispering and semi-translucent. It was very, very strange. And it doesn't fit when you have it then bookended with trapeze, like juggling bookkeeping rats singing about like going to their tropical island and heat wave. That's the song we need, Gene. We need like a chilly down. We need heat wave, and they break out into some calypso. That's the shit you need. That would have been Muppet gold, right? But at the same point, they try to then throw in like of the Ghost of Christmas to Come. It is unsettling. It is like just this hooded. They joke, they break the fourth wall and say, hey, that's scary, isn't it? I'm going to hide over here on the side, And yes, it was scary. It was just, this is aimed at families. And they're just pushing the envelope. And it was a bit dark.
There was a great line in there, though, when they talked about, like, isn't this too scary for kids? No, it's okay. It's culture. At least the movie's self-aware.
Yes, exactly. But also, why do they choose then? I think what made the Muppet movie great is we listed all those weird characters, right? The people you would see in the background. And you'd be like, wow, okay, that fish dude. Here, they decided instead to create new characters that I questioned whether or not, is this somebody I'd seen? Should I know this character? I already mentioned the haunting doll, the crystal, the dark crystal doll. But the present, the Ghost of Present, this looked like a Muppet character of Harry Potter, the guy Hagrid. It was a large individual who was kind of lumbering around, does not fit in the universe, does not exist. The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come does not exist. That haunting nightmare, who again looks like from the Lord of the Rings, the things that chase him around and try to like suck his soul.
Ring wraiths.
Yes, Old Joe, that spider-like pawnbroker that appears at the end. What was that, Gene? Why was there a soul-sucking spider who had I knew it was like thieves who were going through stealing from him when he was dead. But did you need to make the character look so haunting?
I liked Old Joe, but it's funny you should mention this whole thing because the ominousness, right? That was intentional. They were like originally thinking, okay, we're going to have the Ghost of Christmas Present. That's going to be Miss Piggy. Christmas Yet to Come. We're going to have Animal, or even better yet, they had the idea of Gonzo and his nose would stick out past the hood, which is fucking great. That's
awesome.
So good. But, and then they wanted to do a Scooter as the Ghost of Christmas Past, but they made the decision that they consciously wanted to be more ominous. And so even with the Ghost of Christmas Past, they actually filmed that thing in a fish tank full of water and then superimposed it over the screen to make it look even spookier. And yeah, I got to tell you, I am 44 years old and I don't like looking at her.
Yeah, I think this is Disney. Once they had their hands on Henson's IP, and once Henson had passed on, they were like, let's get it all. Let's get some of these weird characters. We don't want the kids to hear about love and love moving on, but yes, this apparition that does not speak and just takes you to the grave and is death incarnated. Let's leave him in. It's great. And it's the Dickens lesson. You're going to see the three ghosts. You're going to learn a lesson about what you were in the past, how your actions are affecting people today, and what the future will look like for you and those around you if you don't change. Spoiler alert, Gene, at the end, this one night of adventure, viewing these three spirits, it's changed Scrooge's total perspective. He's a changed man. He wakes up. It got me thinking in my life. I was first thinking, like, if I had these three visits, what would it look like? But then I led to which one right now, as a 51-year-old, would I want to see the most? Yeah, it would be fun to go back as a kid to see my childhood, but there might be things in there that could ruin my vision of my parents and how I am today. So nothing good can come from that. I think it'll be a lot darker and a lot sadder, and maybe make me judge my parents differently in the way I was raised. Right now, I don't want to know how I affect those around me, other than Emma down the road I'd like to hear. But right now, it won't add to me. But to see into the future, I would take a look 10 years in the future to see if the decisions I'm making will lead to a positive outcome for those I love. For you, if you could see one, which spirit would you want to go on a trip with and why?
It's got to be the future. Terrifying as it might be, because if they're like, hey, 10 years from now, I might not be here, and that's going to be very disappointing. Yes. But I also kind of assume that's a possibility already, so it's not going to be a big surprise. I'd like to see how things turn out.
Yeah, that is until you see Sarah. Like, who's that guy Sarah's with? Is that Gene Jr.? Who's that kid with a mustache and a lovely long locks of hair? Wait, what? Where am I? Where am I? That's something you don't want to see.
Is that Roger?
Oh,
what's she doing with him?
And yeah, you'll see like photos up around the house where she's like, Roger, I remember when Gene died and you were the first to come over and console, and we realized he was the one who kept us apart. Yes. And the little Gene you thought was actually little Roger.
Oh no.
And all your dogs are coming over, like treating him better than they ever treated you.
The dogs are still around. I love it.
They would, yeah. Science is advanced in the future.
But you just got at something that got me thinking, Big D, about not wanting to know presently, right? Like what's going on around you. How unaware does Scrooge have to be for these three visits to change his viewpoint? Because, okay, the past, motherfucker, you lived it. So you remember that. The present, if you don't know that people are talking shit about you, the way you act, come on now. And then the future, it didn't occur to you that keeping your employees in abject poverty would cause their children to maybe get sick and die when you've got shit like whooping cough ripping around Victorian London? Scrooge knows all this shit already.
He does. That's why this is horseshit. This is him trying to placate the spirits. Oh, wow, I've really changed. I can't believe any of that happened. This dude's smart. This dude's running a business. This dude is very self-aware.
Listen, if I could get rid of all my guilt and nightmares by just buying somebody a turkey, fuck yeah.
Dude, imagine if heaven and Heaven's Gate is real like people describe it, I'm going to do this shit, Gene, to a T. I'm going to win an Oscar. When I get up there, oh, I swear I've changed. I regret all those things I said about you, God. I did read your book. I did accept you. I'm gonna fall on the sword that day.
That's the part that's confusing. Like, what are you going to get out of it? You're going to get what you already would have gotten out of it, which is if you're nice to people, they'll like you better. Yeah, no shit.
They're usually nice if you're just not a fucking asshole to them.
Right. If you give him Christmas off.
He realizes it. He knows he's making them work on Christmas. Yeah. There's no epiphany.
No.
No.
Maybe if we had seen the scene with Belle, we'd understand better why he is the way he is. Disney. The ghost of Christmas present leaves Scrooge with the ghost of Christmas yet to come, who takes Scrooge into the future, where Scrooge's death elicits no sympathy from the inhabitants of London, and his stolen possessions are sold to a fence named Old Joe. The ghost also shows Scrooge the Cratchit's home, where they find Bob and his family mourning Tiny Tim. Scrooge is led to the cemetery, where he sees his own grave and tombstone, seeing it bears his own name. He tearfully vows to change his ways. So Big D, as you mentioned, this is the point where Rizzo and Gonzo sort of exit the film. And it wasn't until they left the film that I realized how critical they are to the Muppet Christmas Carol. I mean, of course, Gonzo is the narrator. He's Charles Dickens, so he's kind of important. But these two Muppets, Rizzo and Gonzo, they are putting in serious work in this film. They're the only ones being kind of weird. Like you said, that magic of the Muppets that we really love. Rizzo's got this scene where he goes up this like gigantic fence and then jumps off and it breaks his little body. And then he realizes he forgot, of all things, his jelly beans. So he goes back, he just crawls back through the fence to get him. Or gives a little kiss on Gonzo's nose. He's catching fire. He's ice skating. Like, an important aspect of the Muppets, we all have to understand this. The people controlling the Muppets, the people directing the Muppets, the creators of this universe, they know exactly what Muppets look like. And Muppets look funny. When they do things, it looks funny. Like when Kermit does his little spaz dance, it's just funny. The Muppeteers nailed it with Rizzo and Gonzo. I don't know that it extends to the entire cast.
Yeah, there's the moment also where you get Sam the Eagle. Sam the Eagle is he's an American patriot.
Hell yeah.
Right. And he forgets his role there, that he is a British headmaster. And he says, business, it's the American way. And then Gonzo leans over and he says, oh, it's the British way. And all of a sudden he remembers. You need them because they're Muppets, Gene, doing Muppet things.
Yes.
The rest of them are Muppets pretending to be people. It's never happened before. Kermit was always Kermit. He may be in the role of doing something like a human would do, whether it's a job or riding a bicycle, but he was always a Muppet. Here, you got Muppets doing adult things. It's a mishmash, and it makes sense that this wasn't Henson, that you had Katzenberg and you had the Disney execs putting their hands into the pie here and what is it? The mince pie? What is it that Andy eats on Christmas?
Yeah, mince pie.
Yeah, some minced shepherd's pie or whatever. You don't want too many hands in there, too many dirty Disney hands. And it got me thinking, like, how did you pick this? You couldn't have picked a story of maybe Santa Claus and somebody gets powers like Santa, or a kid who makes a wish on Christmas. You had to pick this historic, this novel, this piece of literature. And I started to think, it's a weird choice. And then I'm like, what else could they have chosen? What other weird shit could we try to put the Muppets together with? Muppet characters in a retelling of a classic story or novel, Gene. And my mind started to run. And I'm like, all right, here's some stories that I can think. And I just jotted some things down. And I'm sure you've got like an Anne Rice, vampire Muppets that would be great. But I was thinking, like, why not Muppet Frankenstein? We got Kermit is Dr. Frankenstein, Gonzo, misunderstood monster, Piggy, Bride of Frankenstein. Fozzie is Igor, and he delivers lines like, Waka Waka, I got your brain. Shit like that. Okay, that's not too far. How about Muppet Macbeth? Gonzo's Macbeth. He's spiraling to madness. He's helped by a trio of chickens. Why not? Miss Piggy, Lady Beth. Or we could do a Muppet Moby Dick. Kermit is Ahab. Fonzie as Ishmael. We could do a lot of goofy, fun movies. The Great Gatsby, maybe? Muppets Great Gatsby.
Yes.
The Muppet Shining. We could have a darker one. Fozzie, he's up isolated. He's Jack Torrance. He's writing a novel. When you find the sheet, he's just been typing Waka Waka Waka. Across the page. Kermit he's Danny, and he's having visions of Statler and Waldorf. You could do so many great ones. Pride and Prejudice, Apocalypse Now, anything, Gene. After this film, nothing is off limits.
It is the trend now to make things more gritty. I could see if like Max got their hands on the Muppets as an IP and they, do this. But I think the crossover that we're most likely to get, Big D, is some sort of a Muppets Star Wars crossover, which I do not want to see.
No, we're like a Muppets, like Game of Thrones or some medieval story.
Yeah.
I want like a Muppets 1984. Let's get an Orwell. You got Sam the Eagle as Big Brother. And he's watching all the other characters. That'd be great. You got Kermit's Winston. You got Miss Piggy as Julia. A lot of shit we could do here. Let's go dark.
This is what happens when Big D records after midnight, everybody.
Yeah,
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Scrooge awakens back in his bedroom on Christmas Day. Filled with glee, he begins spreading happiness and joy around London, agreeing to give money to the gentleman's charity and reconciling with Fred and Fozziwig. Scrooge has Bean Bunny buy the town's prize turkey, and they, along with Dickens, Rizzo, and the gentleman, deliver it to Bob's family. Scrooge tells Bob he will raise his salary and pay off his mortgage, and Dickens tells that Tiny Tim escaped death thanks to Scrooge's new generosity. Everyone celebrates Christmas together. So, Big D, you just mentioned Muppet Macbeth, and I will have you know that Michael Caine indicated when making this movie, he had a conversation with Brian Henson and said, I want to play this as if I'm a part of the Royal Shakespeare Company. I'm doing this movie like Shakespeare. And I waited until the last segment of the pod to talk about Michael Caine because it's so important to consider everything he did in this film, the whole body of work, before evaluating his performance, which to me is utter perfection. He is great in this movie. This man is on a movie set surrounded by Muppets doing Charles Dickens, and he is playing the whole tale as an earnest Victorian drama. He's begging the spirits for mercy. He's scowling at his employees. And in the end, you get to see Michael Caine dancing and singing as best a Michael Caine can. And it all leads up to him sitting at Bob Cratchit's dinner table. And you get this beautiful shot. You're inside this little home, and just the entire cast, you got Muppets all over the fucking place. Michael Caine sitting dead center like Jesus at the Last Supper, just highlighting the masterclass this man put on.
I got to agree with you. I would have liked if he did the 100% earnest performance and then maybe had somehow broke the fourth wall and been like, what the hell? What is that chicken or what is that rat talking? Something so he addressed the strange nature of the world he found himself in. But I found it much like the performance by Frank Langella in Masters of the Universe as Skeletor. This is a ridiculous, Dolph Lundgren, juiced up, terrible retelling of the action figure story origin, and it was really laughable. But Frank Langella didn't know it was that type of movie. He put in an Oscar-type performance under that mask, and I think you're right. Michael Caine put the performance in, and I got to respect him for that, but I can't respect the character and that he's really changed, because in all the other Scrooge tellings, Scrooge is either like you think of Bill Murray, right? He was held outside through the window with the threat of falling. He was in that cab of terror. There was a fear of danger that you could be hurt. Nothing here really would force him to change. Yeah, maybe he wants to change, just the ghosts will leave him alone so they won't fuck with his future. You know, but what really horrible things could come to him? You know, by the end, he's at Bob Cratchit's door, and he's already starting to show cracks that he hasn't changed. Maybe he hasn't suffered enough. Just when you think he's turned the corner, he realizes how these normal folk fear him, how he controls every aspect of their life. Does he come in and say something like, Bob, I'm terribly sorry I never met your family, and I that you can't provide a feast. I want to take care of you. No. He puts on a performance where he pretends to manipulate him even further and torture him and say, why aren't you at work? I'm going to cut half your pay. And when he sees that poor Bob is cowering, afraid, and out comes Piggy, his wife, it was a fucking mean streak that if he learned anything from this near-death experience that he could have had, he doesn't show any humility. He doesn't show anything. And Gene, is this like, are they trying to humanize him more? Or is it just showing us that he has learned nothing from this entire situation?
I think this is just like a 90s way of humor that I see a lot with boomers. It also reminds me of those, the videos where the cops, you know, act like somebody's in trouble. They'll pull a kid over and they're like, oh, it's just a Santa sleigh check, you know, some shit like that. Like, it's not cool, man. It's absolutely not cool. And you're right. So many people feel like they need to be comedians. I don't know what happened to an entire generation or two of Americans that are like this, but no, the cool way you do this is you go up like a fucking adult, you apologize for the shitty things you've done, say, I'm going to make it up to you. I appreciate the work that you do for me. I have what I have because of your hard work, and I want to share some of that with you. Thank you. Merry Christmas. And then you know what? You drop the shit off and you fucking leave. Be a man.
Yeah, why impose? Yeah, how about be humble and show humility?
Yeah.
Don't impose. Give them the turkey. Say, I apologize for what I've done to your family. I hope one day I can earn back your trust and that you will want to work for me. Maybe I'll make you part owner, something, whatever. Show that you've learned. But instead, he just fucking, I'm going to come in your house. I'm going to sit here with your family. I'm going to act like I know you and I've cared about you when I haven't for that entire time. And for those people out there, Gene, who don't know the police videos you're talking about, I think you're talking about the video like where a cop will pull over a husband and wife, and the husband set it up, or the wife is set up, and he'll come over and be like, I notice you don't have the child in the baby seat. And they'll be like, hey, there's no child in the car. And you look over the wife and she's holding a pregnancy test. Like that fucking type of bullshit, like hidden camera thing, right?
Oh, no, it's much worse than that, Big D. There are some towns where the police department will literally pull people over like during Christmas or like on Black Friday, and the person would be like, you know why I pulled you over? I don't know, officer. Just pulled you over to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Oh, so it wasn't even like somebody in the car was part of the prank. No, fucking just let me go. I don't want to be pulled over. Because God forbid you're going to see a fucking like a half a joint sitting in my ashtray. Then you're going to arrest me. You're going to fucking pull me out of my car. Just let people go home. Just like Scrooge should have done. Just let fucking people go. But Gene, like oddly now, here we get to the end. And the movie has not shied away from poor Timmy having major health issue. What does he have? What's wrong? He's
got whooping cough, yeah.
Well, he's got whooping cough, Gene, right? The whole movie we've known now that poor Timmy, he's going to die unless things change. We see the effect it has on the entire family. We see Kermit mourning Timmy. We see Timmy's scarf on the seats, Timmy's little hat. Timmy is dead. And then at the end of the movie, just as if Gonzo had gotten a letter from Disney and it said, hey, listen, you can't kill off poor Timmy. And they look at the camera and he goes, hey, just everybody, don't worry. Timmy didn't die. That's a fucking cop-out. Timmy's dead. You made us suffer. Let's go all the way. Timmy's dead.
You're butchering the line, Big D. The line that Gonzo actually delivers, it turns me into the guy that I hate the most. I become a Christmas Story guy. You know, the guys that are like, fragile, a major award. You know, now the way he says it is, and Tiny Tim, who did not die. And that's funny.
No.
People, go watch this movie. It's the funniest line in the damn movie.
Heat wave. This is my island. That caught me off guard. That was more of that.
All right. Well, now is the time in the podcast we give our wipe score for The Muppet Christmas Carol. Wipe scores are our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's when you fell down the chimney and landed on a flaming hot goose. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a film. It is a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Big D, I'll go first. My natural impulse is to give this movie 2 wipes. But that is the Christmas spirit polluting my jovial brain. Much in the same way I'll listen to terrible songs just because they're Christmas songs, I will watch this movie because it is a Christmas movie. It gives me warm fuzzies. I like to watch it with Sarah. I will watch it every year. But it's not nearly as good as other Muppets entries, particularly my favorite, Muppets from Space. I'm going to have to go 3 wipes.
So, Gene, I would have done much higher. I would have given it a better score until I learned about the way they erased the method of making the puppets work. That's what made the Muppet movie so amazing, is you could see the time put in to create it, the craftsmanship of the puppeteers. Here, they don't do it. They cheaped out. The songs, Gene, Muppet movie, are greater. They're bangers. They're memorable songs that tie into the plot. Every song in this just serves the purpose of telling us about the character and what's going on. It doesn't make us emotionally invested in them or the holiday. The effects, again, worse. The characters, we're missing all the weird characters that we've come to love. Animals in there. Him playing the triangle, I thought they were going to go the classic angle. Have a restrained animal forced to play the triangle. Instead, they start banging out tunes. And the setting, the fun is fish out of water. It's seeing the Muppets drive across country together, interacting with people and seeing how they're put in weird situations. This, it didn't have any of that. There was no cohesion. I didn't care either way. It was rushed. It didn't make me feel festive. It didn't make me enjoy the holidays. And I'm really sorry. I feel bad, like I'm going to ruin Abby, James, Helen, and Andy's holidays. And, you know, when they're sitting down on Christmas morning tomorrow and trying to enjoy their family. I appreciate you guys much more than this film. I think it's 3.75. It was, go back and watch the original Muppets. That was a warm, heartfelt story of friends and love and support. This was just a money grab by Disney trying to rape the dead carcass of Jim Henson and his creations.
Well, somebody's a Scrooge today.
Humbug.
Well, with 3 wipes from me and 3 3/4 wipes from you, Big D, that gives us an average wipe score of 3.375 wipes for the Muppet Christmas Carol.
Fuck, now I'm starting to wonder if I was too harsh, but no, I don't think I was. I do not think I was. I really don't. I I would rather watch like Jingle All the Way. I would rather watch pretty much most of the Christmas films that we have done other than this. Gene, with a score of 3.37 wipes, that now ties this in the 295 spot with Pump Up the Volume, Bowfinger, King Solomon's Mine, The Name of the Rose, and Judgment Night.
Name of the Rose with Muppets.
But yeah, Bowfinger with Muppets. Or even another one tied, Pump Up the Volume. Pump Up the Volume with Muppets.
Christian Slater is a Muppet.
Dirty Work with Muppets. You could do them all. In the Army Now Muppets.
Before he gets too carried away, we do have some voicemail to close out this Christmas episode. And the first one also comes from the UK. It's Jenny.
Hi, guys. Just a note to say, I know you get a lot of appreciation. Voice notes. Oh, this is Jenny from the UK, by the way. And I've sent stuff in the past. Just about due my first baby in 2.5 weeks. Currently walking my rescue dogs, Peggy and Herbie. This pregnancy has been like a really long journey and with a lot of loss previously in the last couple of years. And during those times of loss, your podcast really helped me. I know it's just two dudes chatting away, but just so you know, I'm a female in England who finds a lot of appreciation and comfort in listening to you guys chat about these films. Some of them I've never heard of and will never watch, but feels like really good. Sorry, I'm out of breath because I'm so pregnant. So yeah, just keep up the good work. Thank you so much, Big D and Jean. I love hearing how much you're enjoying yourself when you're recording these. All the best.
Jenny, I am so excited and so jealous. It's an exciting adventure you're about to go on. Very happy for you. And it made me think, Gene, again, like I already pulled something out of this film on this message. There's a line where they say, life is a series of farewells and hello. And that's what Jenny mentioned. And it made me think of that. You had a rough year of farewells. I'm very happy for you for your hello. And please call back and tell us. Hopefully everything went well, and we will be sending wishes your way.
So, Big D, this voicemail came in November 13th. And so by my math, Jenny may have delivered at this point. So if that is the case, Jenny, enjoy your Christmas with your family. We're so happy for you. And yeah, I would love to hear how everything went this year.
I would like, if Jenny would like contact, I would do like a Shat onesie. I think that would be a nice gift.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. So please, like get in touch with us so that we could verify it's you. You called in and left a voicemail. So we know your phone number. So call us back when everything's well and give us a size or a color choice. Maybe we'll do our first Shat onesie.
Well, thanks, Jenny, and Merry Christmas. Next up, we have some voicemail about Empire of the Sun. And the first one comes from Joshua.
Hey, guys. I love you too. You guys are killing it over the years. You guys have saved my mental life, I would say, with some of your podcasts. Big D, I also kind of learned all my movie nerddom from Blockbuster Video, my first official job. And so I can relate with most of what you're talking about with, you know, the employee section and all the ins and outs and the the tomfoolery of working at a video store. I want to talk to you guys about Empire of the Sun. It's one of my favorite movies. I just listened to the podcast. Well done. I agree. It does have its flaws. Spielberg was just getting his toes wet in the historical drama genre. But man, that's a beautiful movie. And the symbolism and the imagery is just chock full because of the, you know, novel adaptation. So Big D, what's going on with your heart, man? Like, I don't know if you're post-election vibes are hating the beauty of this movie, but man, it's heartfelt. It's there's some scenes that really tug the heartstrings, and yeah, there's some scenes that are super cheese and Spielberg style, but at any rate, thank you for reviewing that. And I do want to make a recommendation. I don't know how to actually commission a film. Maybe I need to go on the website. But far and away, you mentioned at the end of the podcast, and I actually was thinking about that movie for you guys to review. It is super cheesy, and it is very epic, or at least seemingly so. I think it's Ron Howard directed that one, and yeah, Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Manifest Destiny, Irish immigrants going out west. Yep. It's full of cheese, but it's a good one to review. It's a solid 90s movie. So I would recommend that. And then as far as a couple of nitpicks from the last podcast, Spielberg did not direct Batteries Not Included. I believe he executively produced that one. So if you're looking for something that he directed that's worse than Empire of the Sun, look no further than 1941. Whew, that's a stinker. Came out right after Raiders, I believe. Mm-hmm. So he did Jaws, he did Close Encounters, he did Raiders, and then he came up with that stinker. Maybe it was right before Raiders, I don't know. But 1941 is by far his worst movie. Maybe it'd be worthy for a review. Okay, so that's it. I love you guys. Keep it up. Happy holidays. Kick ass, take names, man. Peace.
I had no idea that Steven Spielberg did a World War II comedy.
Yeah, but it was like, do you know, have you seen it or you read it?
No, I just saw it right. I mean, I just looked it up when Joshua called in.
It's California, and they're trying to defend it against an attack that they think is coming. And I think John Belushi's in it. Is he a pilot? I think
he's like a tank commander.
Tank commander. Yes, tank commander. Because I remember the end of the movie. Spoiler alert, this came out a long time ago. There's a Ferris wheel rolling down like the boardwalk. And I think it happens that it breaks loose because they shoot it with the tank. Yeah, it was not. And there's like a scene where the fighter is flying down the middle of like one of the main streets in LA. And it was... yeah, really weird for a man who would later do Saving Private Ryan and Schindler's List. And it was a weird choice.
You know what he needed?
What it needed?
Muppets.
Always. But as far as you said, what was wrong with me? I agree. It's a beautiful film. It just did not have the impact that I remembered it having. And far and away, we have to do that as well. Another 2-hour, 20-minute, beautiful film, but questionable in the acclaim that it got. But thank you for calling.
To answer your question, Josh, about commissioning, you just go to shatpod.com/support, and all the instructions are right there. Big deal. Take care of you. Next up, we have a voicemail from Jeff, who's also calling in about Empire of the Sun.
Hi, it's Jeff S. Great job on Empire of the Sun that I commissioned. I totally agree with Big D's take on the score, the storytelling and length, and the rankings were very fair. Spielberg had adapted J.G. Ballard's semi-autobiographical book. Ballard's family actually lived under Japanese occupation and imprisonment in Shanghai, so there's a lot of realism in the movie. You discussed symbolism, mentioning the golf shoes and suitcase. Both of these represent not lives lost, but lifestyles lost of the wealthy Brits. Spielberg got more creative in Schindler's List with the Jewish girl's red coat in a black and white film. Empire of the Sun predates Schindler's List by 6 years, and now, thinking of them both, I view them as symbolic bookends of loss. One last bit of history. The Battle of Hong Kong began on December 8th, 1941, lasting 17 days, when the small force of English, Indian, and Chinese soldiers surrendered to the Japanese. As a Canadian from Winnipeg, I must share that 2,000 soldiers from Canada arrived just 3 weeks earlier in Hong Kong, never having fought in such a warm climate or that part of the world. Hard to imagine a farm boy from Manitoba or a clerk from Quebec City arriving with little time to organize or acclimatize before being attacked by battle-hardened Japanese, nearly 3 times their number. The Canadian commander was killed in action. Sergeant Major received a posthumous Victoria Cross after diving on a grenade, and Canadian casualties were 290 killed and 493 wounded.
Jesus.
Worse, or maybe not worse, but just bad, for close to 4 years, Canadian POWs endured forced labor, starvation, and torture. A further 267 died in captivity. Lastly, I have something cool for Gene, the dog lover. In 2000, a Newfoundland dog named Gander, who actually accompanied the Canadians to Hong Kong, was posthumously recognized. During the battle, Gander picked up a thrown Japanese grenade and ran toward the enemy, dying in the explosion, but he saved the lives of Canadian soldiers. Thanks for covering Empire of the Sun. Sorry for this history lesson, but of course this is a movie about history. I totally enjoy the pod and look forward to a future commission. Stay well, all. Cheers.
Tom, you're talking to two American men, one in his 50s and one quickly approaching his 50s. There's nothing we like better than historical trivia.
And also the Canadians, such kind, wonderful people. Even in battle, I imagine they're probably very nice.
I think of you, Jeff, as more than a 51st state. I have utmost respect for Canadian sovereignty and Justin Trudeau, and apologize for any offense our country might have caused. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And next up, we have a voicemail from our old friend Tom in Midland, Texas.
Tom, Midland, Texas. Howdy, Shat Crew. I was calling in after listening to your Halloween 2 podcast, and I have some interesting facts that you guys may like to know. As you know, I was born till late April 1980, but I first watched the original Halloween in 1988 when I was 8, and it's always been my most favorite movie franchise since then, and also Friday the 13th, but mostly Halloween is my most favorite. But anyway, after the success of the original in 1978, they put out a Halloween comic book series. And in it, they retconned a lot of stuff after the original movie, but it made a lot of sense. Like, for instance, one fact, when Michael Myers was 15 in the sanitarium, Dr. Loomis's wife was a nurse at Smith's Grove, and she cared for Michael Myers, but like everybody else, she didn't take him Dr. Loomis totally serious, and underestimated Michael Myers, and Michael Myers killed Dr. Loomis's wife when he was 15, when she was at work one night caring for him. Like, that happened in the comic book, and Michael Myers killed another patient once for eating his birthday cake. He stole his birthday cake and eat it at the sanitarium, and Michael Myers caused the power to go out and went to that patient's room and killed that patient rather gruesomely, and a bunch of stuff like that. But I was letting you know about the comic books. They explained a lot of that stuff that the movie left out. But anyway, I was just calling in to let you know.
Tom, call us back. Sorry that this is one of the things. Our version of the voicemail, I think, cuts you off at 3 minutes. So, Tom, call back. We love your stories. We love to hear about your history in Midland. I'm glad that you're doing okay. We hadn't heard from you in a while, so we're glad that you're still with us, and hope you have a great holiday, because you deserve it.
Big D, do you like knowing more facts about Michael Myers, like fill in the blanks, or do you like him to be kind of mysterious and you don't know much about him?
No, I don't want to know how he got his powers. I don't want to know. When you keep it mysterious, I can't question your storytelling. He's just that way.
See, oddly, I don't mind it if it's like supplemental stuff. Like, I like when like the Silmarillion as a guidebook to the Fellowship of the Rings. Like I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that works out really great. In this case, like I love when there's a book or a comic book, something that goes alongside it. Same with like the Star Wars universe, right? Like I actually like the prose better than I like the films, but that's fascinating, Tom. I really want to look into that because I have been on a bit of a kick. My friend Craig just launched a comic book line called Shadow Blade. I've been reading that. The King Bee got me back into Batman. And so I'll have to check that out, Tom. It sounds really fascinating. And thanks everyone for calling in. It was great to hear from everybody on this episode. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can go to shatpod.com, use the SpeakPipe feature on any device. We'd love to hear from you. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
So, Gene, next week, with Christmas being over, we unfortunately are going from the very happy, festive Muppets to a very different film. Private detective Tom lives a normal life with his wife and young daughter until he receives a startling new case. A widow named Miss Christian has found what appears to be a snuff film along with her husband's belongings, and she wants Wells to determine if the movie is real or fake. Wells heads to California, where a video store employee helps him infiltrate the dangerous and deprived world of illegal porn films commissioned by Mark B. And everything now I start picturing Muppets, Gene.
Yeah.
How would this film be with Muppets? A Nick Cage Muppet, and then the rest of the crew.
Thank you, Mark, for the upcoming commission. And thank you to Helen, Andy, Abby, and James for commissioning the Muppet Christmas Carol. Thank you to all the commissioners to make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all that information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next time for the following movie.
This is the mortgage, Cindy's college money. If I do right by Mrs. Christian, the circle she runs in, this could be the break we've been waiting for. Can't take longer than a couple weeks. That's all I can tell you, honey. Sometimes you can't know what I'm doing. It's better that way.
It's always that way.
You come highly recommended, Mr. Wells. You're praised for your discretion.
Thank you, ma'am.
As you know, my husband passed away recently.
Yes.
My husband was the only one with the combination to this safe. These were my husband's private things. I didn't realize.
Do you want to tell me what you found, Mrs. Christian?
Private Detective Tom Wells is one of the only people who has seen it. It is 8 millimeters wide. It runs at 16 frames per second. And he has been hired to discover.
All I want is to know that this atrocity is false. I want the proof of it.
If what's on it is real.
Finding the guys who made this film is going to be very difficult. I need information. I thought you might be able to help.
You name the device, I name the price. I'm gonna tell you, there's things that you're gonna see that you can't unsee. They get in your head and they stay there.
Some doors should never be opened.
Tom, where are you?
You dance with the devil. The devil don't change. The devil changes you.
Because once you go through,
I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay.
There is no going back. Nicolas Cage.
I'm trying to understand!
Wherever you were, just forget about it.
I can't. There's no one left to finish this but me.
8 millimeter. A film by Joel Schumacher.